Rev up your engines!
Well, Chevy pulled the plug on the Corvette Z06. They're not going to make anymore because they want to go to electricity, right? Not these big monster racing cars. Now, the Z06 has been around since 1963, but they're not going to be doing it anymore. They want to go to electric. Realize they never sold that many of them in the first place. For example, in 2018, they only sold 2,356 of them. So this isn't a mass-produced vehicle. They're selling a bunch of it. It's more an image, and they want to have an electrical image now. So they say they're going to kill it. They're not going to make them anymore. So you guys that want track-ready cars to race around in, I guess you have to build your own regular Corvette and convert it yourself, I guess. But, you know, the death of the Z06 is out. According to Chevrolet, they're not going to make them anymore. Such a small run, it's not kind of surprising that they're not going to make them anymore. You know, like I say, they never sold all that many of them. They're more collector's items and guys that want to race them around. And guys that want to race cars, heck, they always modify them anyway, so now you got to modify your own. L.J. Wine says, about a 2010 Mercedes ML350, should I put additives? I have a friend in Alaska who says he uses Nano tuned by Luckstone and said he went from 17 miles per gallon to 25 miles per gallon using the product. I think he's giving you a lot of baloney. Put different oil in. You're not going to have gas mileage go from 17 to 25. No, you're not. It just isn't going to happen. The only way that would happen is, let's say you had a car that normally gets 25 miles a gallon, and it's all clogged up inside, and you put a cleaner in, and it cleans it out, and it goes back to normal gas mileage. Now that is possible, yes. It's just like people say, look, if you put this special air filter in, you'll get 30% better gas mileage. Yeah, well, you know what you get 35% better gas mileage from? That compared to an air filter that's completely full of dirt and crud and doesn't suck air anymore. They're not talking about a clean air filter and this other clean air filter is better and you get better gas mileage. That's a load of baloney. And in that case, if he really did go from that gas mileage, he had a clogged up system and it cleaned it up. Yes, great, but you bought a Mercedes, it runs perfectly fine now. You put that cleaner and you're not going to find any difference at all. Because it's already running okay. That's the disclaimer of a lot of that stuff. People say, look, it runs better. Yeah, because maybe the old one was all clogged up. Then that cleaned it out. It can help. But it isn't going to make a car that runs good get any better gas mileage. That's one of the biggest frauds in history. Put this magical thing in, your gas mileage will go up. No, that doesn't work. That doesn't work for any car. It can make it go back to how it was originally designed. If it's dirty, yes. But it is not going to make you get better gas mileage in a car that runs normal. Happy Canada says, Scotty, big fan. I want to buy a hybrid SUV. I'm looking at a 2017 Highlander with 90,000 kilometers for 46,000 Canadian and a 2019 RAV4 hybrid with 25,000 miles. Both of them for 50K. What should I do? I go for the one with 25,000. You're going to get better gas mileage with the RAV4 anyways. The Highlanders are bigger. They get worse gas mileage. Of course, it depends really what you want. Size-wise, they're both good vehicles. And since it's low enough mileage, you're talking kilometers, not miles. The hybrid systems, I've never seen one break down before they had 160, 180 or more mileage on it. Not kilometers, miles. So both of them can last a long time. But do you want a little bit smaller one with a RAV4 or do you want a bigger vehicle like a Highlander? You got to decide. But either way, I would go for the RAV4 because it's got a lot less miles. The less miles is going to last longer. Dave's 2NG says, my car stalls when it's hot. I got an 05 Ford 500 with less than 105,000 miles and I like it. Once I've been driving the car about an hour and it's all totally warmed up, it will start to stall out. Here's one thing you got to understand about cars. They have to have the right mixture of air and fuel. 14.5 parts air to 1 part fuel. That's supposed to be the perfect one that it runs on. But when an engine is cold, it needs more fuel. So it adds extra fuel so it runs okay. You're driving a whole hour. Finally, when the thing's all warmed up and everything, usually you warm up a lot before an hour, but yours goes up to an hour. Then it starts to stall. Odds are either it's flooding out the engine with too much fuel, in which case that's simple because when it stalls out, then when you restart it, if you get black smoke, it's flooded out. Now, on the other hand, let's say it stalls out, you start it up, and there's no smoke coming out. Then it's running out of fuel. And I would guess, being a Ford 500, it's your fuel pump starting to go out. Because if your car's running too rich, it isn't going to take an hour for it to run too rich and flood out. It's going to happen within 15 minutes or so. You started it, it's warmed up enough then that it would stall it out. But it's your fuel pump is starting to go out. It's an electric pump. It may take an entire hour of that pump pumping And then finally, it's crapping out because it's shorting out after an hour of use. I would guess the fuel pump, and that would be the most logical thing they could do. But of course, it could also be a computer circuit. The computer drives the fuel pump. Maybe after an hour of warming up, the computer gets hot, and then it shorts it out, and it doesn't send power to the pump, and the pump doesn't pump. So it could be that too, but more often, it's just a bad fuel pump doing that. Brewberry28 says, this is a good idea to power wash the engine bay to find the source of leaks. That is the old school way. You clean the old leaks and grease off, then you see where the new grease is coming from. The problem with power washing is modern cars are so computerized. You get the computers wet. You get the sensors wet. You get the wiring connectors wet. It can short out all kinds of stuff using the power wash machine. So then you say, oh, okay, Scotty, well, how do we find the source of leaks? What I've been doing for years, because I don't want to ruin somebody's car with a power washer. I got a bunch of power washers cleaning salt off, but not in the engine bay, because it can destroy stuff. You just get some ultraviolet UV leak dye kits. AutoZone's any place. Amazon, you can get them. You get a UV light, then you get yellow sunglasses and dye. And you put dye in the systems, and then you see where the green dye comes out. When you put the UV light with the yellow sunglasses, you see the dye shines. And wherever it's leaking, you just follow the drip up to the top, and that's what's leaking. That is the best way to find leaks, because you start power washing under the hood. There's so much computer electronic stuff. I've even seen good mechanics make a mistake, and I'll power wash it because it's all dirty everywhere. Then they got running problems. Sometimes they can ruin a computer. Not a good idea to power wash under the hood. The UV dye works perfect for finding any leaks. Not Sure Man says, I got 179,000 miles on my car. It's a 2009 Hyundai Sonata, and the coolant gauge keeps going up. If I'm parking when I'm delivering, it'll go up to 3/4, then it comes down, and there's no codes or anything. It shouldn't go up to 3/4. That's too high. But it runs normal and you're not losing any coolant. It could easily be the stupid gauge is not reading correctly. It's a 2009, so it's old. I would say first, just change the thermostat. Simple. Take the thermostat housing, put a new thermostat. It could be it's sticking, and that's going to cost you $10 at AutoZone or something. Put a new thermostat. They might fix the whole thing. But if it still does exactly the same, then that means either your temperature gauge is wrong, and you could replace the temperature gauge sending unit, or your cooling system fan isn't coming on early enough. It's taking too long to come on. And for that, you would replace the thermal time switch. It's the switch that tells the fan when to turn on and off. It could be that the switch is starting to wear out. It'll make it come on, and it won't trip any codes. On 09 Hyundai, it's not that sophisticated software. It won't trip a code if that thermal time switch goes bad. So it could be that too. But start with the thermostat. So an old car could be as simple as the thermostat. If not, either the gauge isn't working right or your thermal time switch is breaking down and it's coming on too late. Shanghai 2CI says, greetings from Mongolia. I have a Toyota and it makes a cold start noise. And he's got a video of it rattling away. I bought cheap Russian brand coolant and it froze. Even in a container it froze. And it made the engine have all kinds of problems. I changed it out, but now it's making this horrible rattling noise. Help. All right, well, he's got a video. And it's rattling like mad. Well, let me tell you something. Pray, it's just a water pump. I've had that happen many times to customers in the past when I lived up north. If they didn't have good coolant in, water expands when it freezes, right? So it froze, and it broke the water pump. So when they're running it, clanging, pray it's just your water pump. Pray that it didn't crack the head or the block, because that's super big money. And you're in Mongolia. I assume it gets pretty cold there, right? I guess it shows the Russians, they can't even make coolant, you know? They're obviously no good at doing war anymore, and their machines don't work all that great. Well, they can't even make coolant. You bought cheap Russian coolant, right? Pray it just broke the water pump and not the engine. I hear a lot of rattling. What you might do is take the fan belts off. And then if the rattling stops, you know it's something they drive, and in that case, it's probably the water pump. Pray it's just the water pump. I've often seen it just break the water pump. Keep your fingers crossed. Now, here's a problem that one of your viewers had. Flex fuel vehicle. And they always use regular gasoline, right? Then they decided, hey, it's flex fuel. I'm going to put flex fuel in. Car's 4 years old. They put in E85. It's 85% ethanol, 15% gasoline. The car wouldn't accelerate right. It was hesitating. And they wondered, a mechanic said, there's all kinds of things we're going to have to replace on your car, blah, 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 blah. They didn't trust them, so they asked me. I can just about guarantee you what happened. If you have a car that's a flex fuel and you always run it on E85, you're not going to have any problems. The system gets used to it. If you know anything about alcohol, ethanol, it absorbs water. If you run that all the time, any water that's in there is absorbed and burned through the system. But if, like this guy, you've been driving a car for 4 or 5 years on regular gasoline and water don't mix. So you get water in your gas tank, it always goes to the bottom. And then the gasoline floats on top of it. And you got a reservoir of water under little bits of it, right? So 4 or 5 years, you could have a reasonable amount in there. Then if you decide, I'm going to put E85 ethanol in my car now, because it's a flex fuel one, you put that alcohol gas in there, 85% ethanol, it will start sucking all the water out. It'll run it through your fuel system and it'll run like crap. I've had that happen to a bunch of my customers. Don't put ethanol in the E85 flex fuel vehicle unless you use it all the time. And all of a sudden decide to try it. If there's water in your gas tank, it's going to absorb it all and make your car run like crap. So this guy's case, I told him, I said, what you really want to do is drain your fuel tank, run some cleaner, change your fuel filter. It'll probably go back to running normal because it sucked all the water in the system and then ran it through. Like I said, if you would have started with E85 all the time, you're not going to have any problems because any little bit of water immediately absorbed and it'll run through your system and it'll burn it. But sitting there with years of gasoline, the water just stayed on the bottom, didn't get absorbed, boom, you're going to have a problem when you put ethanol in it. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.